Let's run further down the track and continue this journey. In this episode, Jonathan Bay interviews the candidates for Mission and Ministry Board Area Number 1, Joel Gibbel and Regina Holmes.
Welcome, Joel Gibbel. We're glad for this opportunity to get to know you better as you are on the ballot for the Mission and Ministry Board Area 1 position at this year's annual conference.
Happy to be here.
What makes this position you're being considered for important in the life of the broader church?
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say up front, Jonathan, this feels interesting because it's not so much a race. This is not an election I feel like I need to win or even am really trying to win, simply open to serving. And Sister Regina Holmes is on the ballot beside me. She would be wonderful for this position. And it is simply a matter of calling from the body, and I'm just honored to be part of it. I think the Mission and Ministry Board positions on it are important for the church. I think it is an opportunity for the church to keep its voice. The Mission and Ministry Board is a body which speaks on various occasions on behalf of the church, and local churches can speak within their own communities. That Mission and Ministry Board is a place where the church's voice can be heard on a greater level to a greater audience. I believe it's important for the church to have a voice for peace, a voice that represents our, what you might call a non-coercive perspective on following Christ. And there's important hunger for that in the world. And of course, there is the oversight and guidance of the work of the Church of the Brethren together. Just broadening the reach and the influence and the witness of the church across the nation and worldwide. And the Mission Ministry Board oversees various mission points, initiatives, and is supporting local congregations on their levels in their disciple making and serving as they are so led. And so it's kind of this web of influence that both connects and empowers local communities as well as oversees broad service, opportunities that are worldwide, and that we need to kind of hold them together with the leadership and oversight that Mission and Ministry Board provides. So both in the COB to hold the various pieces together in communication, but for the big C church, for the church worldwide, it is a voice, and I think an important one.
Well, thank you. It sounds like you have put a lot of time and energy to discern the calling for this position. Do you feel like you're better suited for this position in 2022 than you would have been, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
Good question. And the answer is yes. I mean, certainly, I'm not going to bore you all with my whole life story, but certainly I have come a long way in the last 10 years. I'm discerning a call to ministry is very significant within that time period. It was in the year 2010 that I really sensed a strong call to ministry and entered studies at Bethany Seminary. I was licensed in 2012, completed my training in 2017, and became a pastor that year. And so being a pastor is a second career for me. And so much, I can barely begin to describe how much formation has come about in the last 10 to 15 years of my life. If you want to go back 20 years, I was this young adult, fresh out of college, passionate about the faith, but naive and ignorant looking back in what I really understood about the church. I also have gone through a new phase in life in terms of being a father and both a church pastor, which is in a way a shepherding, almost parenting position to a degree, but I'm also a father of 2 young children. And my goodness, between pastoral leadership, service on district board, having been an annual conference delegate several times, and my theological training within fairly recent years, there's been a tremendous amount of growth. within my life and my faith. And so there is certainly that.
Yeah, that sounds like you've had quite a lot of time to grow and figure out who you are within your faith as well. I think you kind of touched on this question a little bit already, but is there a person or organization currently or in your past that has inspired you or helped you to develop your gifts so that you have the passion and skills to be prepared for this specific position?
Right. And this kind of fits well with that. I mean, certainly my experiences in seminary formation and theology and ethics and kind of bringing a clarity to my beliefs and what I'm able to speak and teach has been a tremendous opportunity for growth. That is, many people are involved in that. But certainly Bethany Seminary and all who are connected, both classmates and instructors, have really been formative for me. I also want to name, I served on the board of directors with On Earth Peace back about 15 years ago. This was 2008 and 5 years following. And my experiences there were tremendous. Connections with fellow board members and the staff of On Earth Peace was remarkable experience, in both experience being on a board in a denominational agency setting, but also the amount of skill building that accompanied that was tremendous. And so really brought some awareness of both the dynamics of the church and those who serve her, and also how boards can best function together. I will also note that Brother Jim Beckwith, who we know as annual conference secretary for the last 10 years, he was a mentor to me when I was a licensed minister walking toward ordination. And so in our time together, I would share about what's going on in my life, and he would share about what's going on in his. And it was persistently annual conference this, annual conference that. I feel like I had a window into the world of the Church of the Brethren's business, which was interesting. And I just feel like hearing all that from him, even though a bit overwhelming, helped to inform me and give me an understanding of how things operate at the denominational level, both the strengths and the challenges of leadership. And so I can name that as something that has prepared me for a position like this.
Well, that's interesting to kind of have a glimpse into what this position is going to look like for you, possibly. I want to move into this question of holding a leadership position in the church is a lot of work, as you're well aware of, on top of your other jobs and personal life. How do you envision taking care of yourself while juggling these multiple responsibilities? Yeah,
so important. Thank you. This is something I entered this process with a great deal of prayer and discernment. Presently, I serve on the Southern PA District Board, and that's something I committed to several years ago. It does take time, and I'm aware of both the necessity of meetings. I'm on the board and I chair a team, and so I'm on the executive committee as well, and it's certainly kind of keeping that schedule of several different forms of meetings and reporting to that board. I've become aware of that process. And I've been able to fit it into my life relatively well. If I'm elected to this mission and ministry board position, I intend to step away from the district board service. My term is going to end this year. And if elected to this denominational level team, I will step away from that. And so in my mind, that is maintaining a level of balance. If I were to do both at once and continue as a full-time pastor, it's a bit much. Enough to say that's unhealthy. But as it is in my life, I feel like I manage my work and my home life and my activity. I'm very active. I do loads of bicycling and stay fit and happy because I'm able to commit time to that and to just set boundaries on how much I'm willing to work. And, a refusal to be obsessive is maybe a good way to put it. I am willing to be of good service. I am unwilling to be obsessive. I will not as they say in college, like pull an all-nighter to get a bit of church business done. That just won't happen. That's unhealthy, and a certain patterns and limitations that we need to call on. So short answer is I feel able to juggle responsibilities so long as there are only so many of them. And I've already named that boundary I will keep.
Yeah, that's
good question, though.
An important one to think about. And you're certainly in a beautiful area to bicycle around.
Right.
All right. So the slightly uncomfortable question, why do you think you were nominated for this position?
Right. It is uncomfortable. I guess the kind of generic answer is I hope and I trust that I have a certain high regard with some people, that I'm respected for my work in ministry. And also I've simply been involved in denominational work for a good number of years here. Many connections with fellow ministers through my seminary work and through other just involvement at conferences and so forth in most of my adult life. And so I suppose part of it is both my level of experience and the perspective I bring, as well as a certain degree of youth and energy, you might say. That's what I feel may have led me to be nominated for this. I'm neither real young nor real old. Not that there's anything wrong with either of them, but I also feel like this is an opportunity. This time in my life feels like a good one to be of service in this type of role. So who knows exactly why I was nominated or by whom? Maybe there was more than one, who knows? But I hope and I trust that I'm held in high regard and my ministry's been appreciated.
Well, it sounds like it. And now for what I think is a fun question. What is your vision for the Church of the Brethren? How do you long for us to become more aligned with the teachings of Jesus?
My God, how long do we have? I feel like this could be a discussion that would take an hour. I just want to say I love this question because I feel like the answer to this is within the question. How do we become more aligned with the teachings of Jesus? Is the way I would answer a question that said, what do you think the vision of the church ought to be? It ought to be better aligning our ministry and who we are and how we speak with the teachings of Jesus. And I appreciate the question so much because my answer is within it. Per the Great Commission, go and make disciples, teaching them, baptizing them and teaching them to obey what I have commanded you. Those are the final words of Christ in Matthew's gospel. It's not just kind of making believers in certain doctrine. It is teaching them to obey what I have commanded. So the teachings of Jesus are what we need to be speaking and forming in one another. And that is where I really have an inclination to place a focus, emphasis on Jesus. When we read the scriptures, we look at how Jesus read his Bible, right? Not just what the Bible says, but how you read it is what Jesus was teaching us. And so maybe this is, I don't know, this will reveal more of my theology, but that the teachings of Jesus must be central to our faith. I have concerns with biblicism being elevated too highly, that as if the Bible is our center. I would say it is not. Jesus is. And his words are the climactic words of the scriptures that we should pay the most attention to. And so I sense a vision for the COB that I would carry as one of boldness in naming what Jesus calls his followers to and to represent as the most important piece of who we are and the identity we carry. Again, back to your first question of all, what is our, the importance of leadership in the COB right now? And I think it's just a voice amidst the larger church, recognizing that we're small and very small, in compared to many denominations. Maybe we should be proud of that, which is kind of an ironic thing to say. There is a skepticism in our society about institutions that are super large and powerful, and we are not really large and powerful. We are small, and perhaps that's a good thing. And at the same time, is our voice not necessary? And the emphasis that we choose, which is on the teachings of Jesus, really needs to be spoken and held on to well. If we kind of just slip into this generic form of biblicism, we'll kind of just fit in with all the rest of Western Christianity, not all of which is helpful, beneficial, I think, to the state of the world and what God is truly calling the church to be. And so again, the answer is within your question. What is the vision for us? Aligning with the teachings of Jesus as closely as we can and not getting away from that.
Well, thank you, Joel.
How does that feel, Jonathan?
That feels like I really got to know you on a very different level. And so I just want to say thank you so much for agreeing to be interviewed. And is there anything else you would like to leave us with?
Ooh.
You don't have to. We can.
Not in particular, but again, I'm grateful for this opportunity to share, and I'm grateful that you're doing this with so many other persons on the ballot. Again, this whole matter of annual conference elections it fascinates me because it's not like the politics of the world. This is not a matter of I want to win and that person's going to lose. Like, no, the body, by the discernment of the whole and presence of the Holy Spirit, I trust will elect and affirm one or the other of those on the ballot. And the one who is not called must understand that he or she is just as much a wonderful child of God and useful to the church's service, just not in this time, in this place. And so I wish the best for everyone on the ballot. If Sister Regina takes this position, I will be perfectly happy with that. And if I am called, I'll be perfectly happy to serve. And so it was with that spirit that I express some gratitude for you, for all who are serving as delegates at this conference. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
Welcome, Regina Holmes. We're glad for this opportunity to get to know you better as you are on the ballot for the Mission and Ministry Board Area 1 position at this year's annual conference. And I'd like to start off with what makes the position you're being considered for important in the life of the broader church, either the COB or the Big C Church?
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for having me today and having given me the opportunity to answer some questions about this position that I'm nominated for. And this is a really important position in the church, in the life of the church. One that I've watched my whole life when it was the general board and now mission and ministry. And so it's a little daunting to be nominated for such a position. So I'm really interested to see how I can help out on this board in the mission and ministry, and see how I can help the churches connect with the larger church. I know that's a big part of our church congregation, even having our home congregation connect to the district and the business part of the larger church is very important, and making sure that the smaller congregations, well, the congregations in general, feel like they can be heard by the larger church and feel like they have a part in the decision making. So I think that's part of what I want to make sure that the individual churches, I want to say back home, feel like they are heard at annual conference.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that making voices be heard is quite an important part of this position. I also heard you say that you're a little bit daunted by this nomination. So what do you think makes you better suited for this position in 2022 than maybe 5, 10, 15 years ago?
hopefully in the last 5, 10, 15 years, I've become more mature and had more experience dealing with situations in my own home church. Obviously, with COVID, that has brought a number of situations that none of us had dealt with before, for the most part, and given a lot of, I'll say, opportunities for us to deal with things and situations with individuals. A lot of times in our church that maybe we had differing opinions on and needed to find a way to bridge those relationships and maintain those relationships on things we didn't necessarily agree with. And I'm also the facilities person at church, and it's kind of interesting how many problems, difficulties that can cause in relationships as well. So both of those things in the last couple of years. And I think I've been off of the district leadership team just a year now, and I was on that for 6 years. So that was a really important part of my, I want to say, education in how the process works from the home congregation to the district and then on to the larger church. Of course, I went to annual conference a number of times when I was a child, and then I was a photographer at annual conference for 20 years. So I saw it from that point of view. But being, I want to say, behind the scenes is a completely different view that I'd be interested in being a part of.
Wow. Facilities during the time of COVID sounds like it will give you a lot to build off of.
Yes.
Is there a person or organization currently or in your past that has inspired you or helped you to develop your gifts so that you have the passion and skills to be prepared for this current position?
Well, first, I want to say my parents. That might be the easy answer. Both my parents have been a big part of my Christian growth, and their dedication to the church. Sometimes, I don't know about too dedicated, if there is such a thing, but they were often on committees and custodians for the church and stewardship back when there were committees and those kinds of things, and very involved in the church. And I find that I am also, sometimes for better or worse. One of the other questions asks, how are you going to balance your time? So that's always a part of what is healthy and trying to figure out that balance. But so my parents obviously were a big part. And then David Radcliffe was my minister when I was in high school. And that was before he had moved on to the denominational offices. And I went on a Honduras work camp with him. And and he's a photographer, and my degree is in photography. So he kind of opened the door and helped me see that my passion for photography could be used for good things, for ministering and showing the programs of the Church of the Brethren and using God's creation to share that with other people. And so that was a big door that was opened for me to show how something that I was passionate about, two things I was passionate about, photography and the church, could go hand in hand.
So how would holding a leadership position in the church on top of all your other jobs and personal life, how do you envision taking care of yourself while juggling all these responsibilities?
Well, that is a very good question, and one that I've probably gotten better at, I hope, in the last 5, 10, 20 years also. I used to hit a brick wall a lot more, and I've gotten better at pacing myself and allowing myself to do nothing or read, relax a lot more than I used to. One thing, the facilities position that I am on the local leadership team will be ending at the end of this year. So this could be a really good time to take on this position, because one would be ending and another one could be starting. So I think this could be a really good time. And what I did when I was on the district leadership team, I actually told the local church that I wasn't going to be on any leadership team for the local church. So doing the same kind of thing, trying to pace myself and not get burned out. And that's one thing I've fussed at our current and past pastor about, was doing their sabbaticals. And that's not what we pay you for. You're not supposed to be, doing facilities things or secretarial things. And because pastors, obviously, they have a really hard job of doing so many things that we already expect them to do. And then they end up picking up all kinds of little things. So I'm aware of it with other people. And I obviously try to be aware of it with myself also, and stop when I need to stop, and leave work when I'm supposed to leave work, and not stay too late, those kinds of things. So take walks, read, I made a puzzle table in the other rooms to give myself, that's purposefully to make myself stop and sit quietly and do a puzzle. So I'm trying to get better at those things.
Love a good puzzle. Now for the sort of tough question, or at least I think it's a tough question. Why do you think you were nominated for this position?
The person that nominated me was actually one of my camp counselors when I was younger. So that was interesting. I think that she has seen me grow up and be active in the Church of the Brethren since I was a youth. I was on the camp board. She's watched me grow into an active participant at the local church and the district level. And I think she knows of my love for the church, seen me at the annual conference as well, and knows how passionate I am about the church, about the programs of the church, and knows I'm a hard worker, and that I'm open-minded and fair. And hopefully those are things that she thinks would be good for this position and good at this time for the life of the church.
What is your vision for the Church of the Brethren? How do you long for us to become more aligned with the teachings of Jesus?
There's so many, I don't know about good answers. There's so many things that I want for the church. Along with the new compelling vision, I think that all of us are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that our gifts for the church make us more vital and compassionate. And I want us to be open to the gifts that everybody brings, and be welcoming to the Zacchaeuses and the ladies that touched his cloak, and people of all different personalities. And I just feel like it's not for we Christians to turn anybody away from Christ. There's so many people who have so many different talents, so many different gifts that I don't have. I don't think there's very many people I can't learn something from. And so I feel like it's not my job to decide who gets to walk in the door and who doesn't get to walk in the door. I think we're all at different places in our journey. There was a story about when I was a teenager, there was a youth that he wasn't coming to the youth group anymore, and he wasn't active, and he was, just not doing what he used to do. And I was just like, I'm giving up on him. I've given up on him. And then I was like, no, I can't give up on him. Jesus doesn't give up on us. God doesn't give up on us. I don't have the right to give up on somebody because God doesn't give up on us. And he's very active in the church now, and he's a deacon and all that kind of stuff. So it's that's kind of followed me, that I don't have a right to give up on anybody. Who am I to put myself in that position? And so that's keeping ourselves humble and realizing we're not Christ. We don't have a right to say no to anybody. It's kind of who I would like the Church of the Brethren to be, and be the voice of calm. I always like when they would say with the World Council of Churches, when they would say, or when I heard that they would say, so what do the brethren say? And I would always think, wow, that's awesome. I would like for us to keep that position. I would like for us to be the voice of calm. Sometimes I feel like if they saw us at annual conference, they wouldn't ask us that question anymore. So I would like to embody that question among ourselves and the world.
Agree. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and share more about yourself, and be vulnerable for us. This process is so strange, the nomination and the ballot system, but bringing some more humanity to it, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I appreciate this opportunity. This is a unique opportunity to hear something a little bit more than the black and white that's on the page. That's hard to feel who anybody is. So
exactly.